or like Jersey or something.
Yeah, and he did a movie a long time ago called Back to School. He went back to school. He's an old guy back to school. So I went back to school after I left the FBI. I did get a master's at Harvard Kennedy, and that's where I'm running across people on both sides of it. And when they could talk, they said, let's start from the premise that both sides want a better life for our kids, which is this version that I was telling you earlier from Tom Girardi. Let's pick a point in the future that we're all happy. And they found that they could talk. All right, so it might not be better for us. How do we make it better for our kids? And that's where the hope derives from. Because I think both sides ultimately want it to be better for their kids, which is why they still engage in interactions, and which is why I think the leadership, regardless of how compromised they might be on either side, there are few straight players in the game in the Middle East, or anywhere for that matter. But they want a better future for their kids. You get people who agree that you want a better future for your kids, now you start talking about, well, how do we work our way back? And then, all right, so we got a mutual point in the future. Israeli-Palestinian negotiations are also, for me, interesting, because you mentioned Clubhouse about almost 2 years ago now, when Israel was shelling Gaza. They hit the UPI office. They were hitting. They got fed up with the rocket attacks from Hamas, and of course Hamas is putting rockets in the UPI office or the AP office, whichever press office it was there. How's that office going to be there otherwise? Hamas is running the show. You're not going to run that office unless you let them store weapons. That's just part of the game. And what are they going to store them in specially designated ammunition dumps? No, they're going to put them in schools. They're going to put them in hospitals. They're going to put them in all places that when Israel hits them, they're going to look really bad. So after a while, Israel gets fed up and starts shelling Gaza, and they're hitting these places. A friend of mine, Nicole Benham, is hosting rooms on Clubhouse, and she says, you got to come on. The vitriol is killing me. These are all turning into screaming matches. Nobody's talking to anybody. I said, all right, cool. We'll go on. We'll do it, and watch. We won't have a single argument. We'll invite people on from both sides. There was one rule. Before you started to describe what you thought of the other side, you had to say, before I disagree with you, here's what I think your position is. And you got to continue to state the other side's position until they agree that you've got it. What happened? No agreement and no arguments. That was what we were really doing on both sides in one of their emotional time frames. If your only requirement was you had to state the other side's position first, nobody got out of control. Did it work? That's exactly what happened. Into screaming matches with vitriol, talking about how you're dead first. See if you can outline where they're coming.
That's really impressive, because I've just having seen on Clubhouse, people, which part of the reason I like Clubhouse is you get to hear voices from all sides. They were emotionally intense. It was. I mean, I'm sweating just in the build-up of your story here. I thought it was could go to hell, but you're saying it kind of worked.
Not one person lost control. Of the two sides, the people that were speaking on behalf of the Israelis were a little better at articulating supportive positions for the Palestinians. Most of the people who want to speak up, they're taking it. It's enormously vicious to the person who's trying, which was really the point that we were trying to make.
It's a really interesting exercise. I mean, that by way of advice, so what's a Clubhouse? For people who don't know, it's like a voice app where you can be anonymous. It's really regular people, but regular people can also be anonymous. It can be chaos. If it works there, that's really for when you sit down conversation across the table from somebody, don't have them even steel man the other side. Have them just state the other side. Just explain your understanding.
Yeah.
That's it.
And every now and then I would jump in. Like, and there's somebody supporting Israel, whoever the heck they were. And they'd say a couple things. And the Palestinian guy would be like, or gal, or supportive of them, would say, you missed some stuff. And I'd say, let me jump in. First of all, I know what the Nakba is. The Nakba is the catastrophe. That's the day Israel was born. For the rest of the world, it's the birth of Israel. For you, it's the Nakba. I said, you've got members of your family that is still walking around carrying the keys to the front door of the house, state my hands on you. And they'd be like, yeah. And I'd say, you feel bad that, in point of fact, that in World War II, the world stood back and watched while the Nazis threw the Jews off a building. The only problem was they landed on you. And they'd be like, yeah. So articulating both people involved in the process.
What's the toughest negotiation you've ever been a part of, or maybe observed or heard?
The stuff we went through with Al-Qaeda in and around Iraq and Saudi. First one was in Saudi, 2004 time frame. The hardest part about that was working with family members and not deceiving them about the possibility of the outcome.
Yeah, how do you talk to family? Is that part of the negotiation?
Yeah. Empathy. Learning empathy the hard way. And then being able to take it up to higher levels. Because at its base level, a guy that we're working with now that's coaching us in the U.S. and is a business partner, his name is Jonathan Smith, he pointed out to us that there's a Shu-Ha-Ri concept. Are you familiar with Shu-Ha-Ri? It's a martial arts concept. And Shu is do it exactly as the master is telling you to do. Wax on, wax off. Karate Kid stuff. Ha is when you've done the repetitions enough times, you get a feel for it, and you begin to see the same lessons coming from other masters. You're seeing the same things show up in other places. And at the Re level, still in the discipline, but you're making up your own rules. It's almost a flow state. And you don't realize that you're making up your own rules. And if somebody asks you where you learn that, you probably say, my sensei taught it to me. My master taught it to me. This will come back around to negotiating with families pretty quickly. We did this once because there's a bunch of people that we coach, business people that are scared of the amount of money that they're losing if we're not coaching them regularly. One of these guys, Michael, we're interviewing him for a social media posting about 2 years ago. And Michael says, yeah, you got to gather data with your eyes. And I remember thinking, I went, ooh, I like that. I said, where did you hear that? He goes, I don't know. I heard it from you, I think. And I was like, no. I didn't remember saying that.
Yeah.
But at that first time I've heard that. He's in Re. So what's this got to do with families? Empathy at its base level and the Shu level, I learned it on the suicide hotline, is saying like, you sound angry. I'm just calling out the elephant in the room. Your emotions, what's driving you. I'm throwing a label on your act, and I'm saying you sound, or it sounds like you are. Because that's the basic Karate Kid wax on, wax off approach. There are a lot of hostage negotiators that will tell you empathy doesn't work at home. Not true. They've never gotten out of trouble. That is going to make her angry. You want to go do something.
Now that's real negotiation right there.
You could say to her, you sound angry, in which case she's going to blow up because her reaction is, can you act like you're an innocent 30? I knew how they felt before I walked. I knew that they were scared to death. You find out that your husband, your father, your brother is being grabbed by Al Qaeda, who are in the business of chopping people's heads off. You're gonna be horrified. I can't walk into them and go like, "You sound angry." Of course I'm angry, you idiot. But knowing what they are, I used to walk into families' houses and I'd say, "I know you're angry. Now what do the circumstances dictate that they should also feel? They're going to feel abandoned by their government. They're going to feel totally alone. They're going to be scared. And they're going to be angry because they feel the government abandoned them." Now, in point of fact, is this an accurate statement? That their loved one voluntarily went into a war zone and voluntarily went someplace the government told them not to go? Are the facts that the government abandoned them? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the government warned them, tried to get them to not go, and they went anyway. But that doesn't change how they felt at the moment. And I walk into a house and I go, "I know you. I know you feel abandoned and alone. And I know you're horrified, and I know you feel the United States government is abandoned." And they would look at me and go like, "Yeah, what do we do now?" Now we're ready to rock.
Is there, with Al Qaeda or in general, is there a language barrier too? It could be just barriers in different communication styles. I mean, you got like a New Yorker way about it. That might make somebody from like, I don't know, Laguna Beach uncomfortable. do you feel that language barrier in communication? Is, that language and communication style in itself creating a barrier?
You got a barrier when you think that your way is the way.
Sure, that's the biggest barrier.
Yeah, and that happens all the time. When people talk about, what about cross-cultural negotiations? Why do I got to shake hands with you so that I can get my way? Well, if you strip it all down, we're all basically the same blank slate when we were born. Everybody's got a limbic system. Everybody's limbic system works pretty much the same way. People are driven by the same sorts of decisions. How does this affect my future? What am I at risk of losing? How does this affect my identity? You're not kind of kidnapper. You're a New York City businessman. You're a tobacco farmer in the South. All making those same decisions based on those same things. So as soon as I start to navigate that, and I tailor my approach, which is what empathy is, to what you think, how you see things. So I can be the biggest goofball ever from, if you live in the South, yeah, maybe I'm a New Yorker, or I'm somebody from LA, or somebody from Chicago. But my geography is foreign to you, but as soon as I start dialing in on how you see things, suddenly you listen.
What about the three voices you talk about? The different voices you can use in that communication.
Right. The assertive voice, direct and honest. I'm a natural born assertive.
Natural born? I thought we're all blank slate. You're born.
Well, that's it. Stop catching me on what I said. How dare you accuse me of what I've said? To quote Bono, I stand accused of what I've said, the things I've said.
That's a good line. He's got a few good lines.
Yeah.
So, assertive voice. You're born that way. Which one, what are the other ones?
Analyst. You're an analyst.
And I can tell you're assertive.
Yeah.
What's an analyst voice?
Well, an analyst is close to
smarter, more thoughtful.
No, as a matter of fact. Look, you ever done a decision tree?
decision trees, I'm a computer scientist, so I like mathematical, systematic ways of seeing the world.
There's an analyst. You think Donald Trump would ever say that? Unlikely.
Well, is he more the assertive kind?
He's a natural born assertive, yeah.
Are all New Yorkers like this? Is this something in the water?
Nah, that's the craziest thing. I mean, there's an aspect that a city can have.
Yeah.
And, New York's Northeast, not just New York, but the Northeast is a little more the affect of the area, of the culture of the area. The individuals still boil down into the three types across the board.
What's the third one?
Accommodating, smiling, optimistic, hopeful. I'm 1,000% convinced that the phrase "hope is not a strategy" is designed at people's frustration over a third of the population being accommodators that are hope-driven. I hope this works out. And they're very on the surface, they're very relationship-oriented. They tend to appear to be very positive, and they are. But it's really built around hope.
And the idea is you can adopt these three voices.
You can learn them. They're all learnable. Analysts are often mistaken for accommodators because, as you said before, analysts are more introspective, more analytical. They're looking at the systems at work, and if they like to learn, they notice that accommodators make more deals than them. They also notice that there's a higher failure rate in deals. But since they notice stuff and they think about it, they catch on faster than assertives do that the pleasant nature of an accommodator strongly to them making deals. Like my note is an analyst. Another descriptor we have in that analyst are assassins. An analyst will snipe you from 1,000 yards out in the middle of the night, and you never know what hit you, and they're really happy with that.
Well, how has assertiveness, the assertive voice, served you in negotiation?
Poorly. The assertive voice is almost always counterproductive. It feels like getting hit in the face with a brick. And that's almost always counterproductive. So for me to be more effective, especially in a negotiation, I'll need to slow down and smile.
I heard that Teddy Roosevelt was a good negotiator, and that he was extremely stubborn. And perhaps the right term for that would be assertive, but he picked his battles. Is there some value to holding strong to principle? So I don't even know. That's probably the opposite of empathy. Are there times when you can just be extremely stubborn to your principles?
We do it all the time. We're just nice about it.
Okay, it helps to be nice. You're saying?
Well, yes, because I need you to hear me. And a typical exercise called 60 seconds or less. And I play the bad guy bank robber, and I ask you to be the hostage negotiator. And your job is I give you the four real world constraints. And then you got to try and negotiate me out of the bank. Now we're doing this. Now the first voice that I always use in that exercise is the assertive voice, which is the commanding voice. It's the voice that all police officers are taught to use in the street. Issues like loud and clear. It doesn't. To me, I don't feel like I'm attacking. I just feel like I'm being direct and honest and clear. You, on the other hand, feel attacked. Now, we're doing this exercise in Austin a couple of years ago. The first participant has an Apple Watch on. He tells us afterwards that sitting still, not even answering, when he first gets hit in the face with the assertive voice, his heart rate jumped to 170, which is a typical fight or flight reaction. I come at you like I'm fighting. Your fight-flight mechanisms all kick into gear, which clouds your thinking. You're automatically dumber in the moment. So if I want to make a great long-term deal with you, highly profitable. I'm agnostic to you being profitable. You be profitable, that's fine. I'm going to make money for me. Me making you dumber will always hurt you. Me making you feel that.
So there's never a value in being in you making me afraid.
What's up, pimp?
There's never.
How you doing, Jake?
It's another
What's good in your neck of the woods?
Roz, when we write a book.
Very cool. Well, you're in the right spot.
Because he said
How was your
there's
day?
scientific data out there that's called strategic umbrage. Well, there's data. Well, whether or not it's scientific, I would call that into question.
Come on in.
They said there's studies out
We're
there
watching
that
hostage
show
negotiators
that
on
strategic
Lex
umbrage
Friedman.
works. And another thing that I also enjoy.
Yes, sir.
You kind of get tired of me saying.
Can you see my camera in there?
He talked.
There's never enough wonderful things to say about the great Andrew Huberman, the host of the Huberman Lab podcast. Everybody should subscribe to.
Okay.
You should talk to Andrew.
You're funnier than he is, though. I'll give you that. He's funny accidentally. He makes me laugh all the time. Not when he's trying to be funny.
Yeah, he's one of the people in this world that's truly legit. He's a really strong scientist and a really strong communicator and a good human being. And those together don't come often, and that's just nice to see. Yeah, he's a treasure, national treasure. Anyway, you were saying.
Well, he sort of taught me how to think about that and studies and science and also from different books that he's turned me on to. He's really helped me think about this stuff. So the studies about the strategic umbrage were done, the ones that I've seen, that show it's effective. There were simulated negotiations with college students. Now here's the problem. A simulated negotiation with a college students are going to sit down as part of their assignment. They're going to sit down one time. They're going to sit down for 45 minutes. And they're going to think that if they didn't come to a deal at all, that they failed. And there's no ongoing implementation. There's just the deal, and then they walk away in a pretend situation. So they got no actual real skin in the game. There's no deal on earth. You sit down and come to agreement in 45 minutes and never see each other again because there's the implementation of the deal. Even if it's only payment. So the data is flawed based on the way it was collected. It's a highly flawed study. And all data is flawed, as you know, as a scientist. You just got to be aware of what the flaws are and decide whether or not that destroys the study. Or what do you think? Take a look at the data.
What up, pimp?
There's no such thing as perfect data. Look at the data. See the data that says that.
Have you seen my YouTube channel?
Can you explain strategic umbrage? Get mad, cheer on the other side into it.
That's okay.
Get mad. Using anger strategically.
I just have a bunch going on at once.
To bully the other side into it.
That's right.
That's nice to hear in some sense. It's nice to hear that empathy is the right way in all kinds of situations. Like,
best chance of success. Not that it works every time, just it works more than anything else.
what is the technique of mirroring? There's a lot of cool stuff in the book. They just kind of jump around. What's mirroring?
Mirroring is like it's one of the most fun skills because it's the simplest to execute. You just repeat 1 to 3-ish words of what somebody said. Usually the last one or two things. What I found about it is people that really like mirroring love it because it's so simple and so effortless and invisible. They typically, for lack of a better term, tend to be both high IQ and high EQ. Like I'm not a high IQ guy. I'm average student. I like to think that I can learn. In EQ, emotional intelligence is a skill you can build, and I'm always working on building it. But a lot of really regular average people will go like, mirroring, that's stupid. I'm not doing that. And I don't know why they don't like it. But when I find somebody that loves to mirror, I'll always ask them, how'd you score on IQ? And typically their IQ is pretty high. Now, I don't know why that combination attracts people to marry, because there's 9 skills, 8 from hostage negotiation, and the 9th really was tone of voice, and we just define that as a skill. And each one is different and focuses on different components of the conversation. And a lot of people don't like the mirror. They find it so awkward. Like I'm not particularly strong in mirroring. I got to do it intentionally. I'm good at labeling.
But does it also always work?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it feels maybe awkward, but it's true. There's got to be ways to signal that you're truly listening.
That's part of it.
I think you can do body language. You can, yeah. There's a lot of ways to signal that, but mirroring is probably just this trivial little hack.
It kind of is.
And you know what? There's a situation. I had a conversation with Stephen Codkin. He's a historian, and he would say my name a lot throughout the conversation. He would be like, "Well, you have to understand, Lex, is that," and for some reason that was making me feel really good. I was like, he cares about me, and I wonder if that key, if everyone has that key, that could be the name. Just using people's name could be powerful.
Using the name is really context driven. It can be extremely powerful with someone who's genuine, that comes across in their demeanor, and it's used in a way that you can tell is meant to encourage you, as opposed to exploit you.
Sure.
And the people that are really into exploiting will also do the same thing.
So you have to avoid using the things that people that are exploiters, manipulators use, because it might signal to others that this person is trying to trick you.
You gotta be very conscious of it. Yeah.
What's labeling you mentioned? The thing you like.
That's, I said earlier, the whole progression from you sound angry to this is probably going to make you angry to I know you're angry. Labeling is hanging a label on an emotion or an affect, and then just calling it out.
Is that almost always good? Could it be a source of frustration when the person is being angry and you kind of put a label on it? Call out the elephant. Is it possible that will lead to escalation of that feeling versus a resolution?
Well, what would make it bad? Like, if I'm pointing out like that, blatantly obvious. Like if I say, look, I need you to get up and go down to the bank and make the deposit. Let's say I'm talking to somebody who works for my company. I need you to get on the phone with this person and make the appointment. And they go, sounds like you want me to talk to this person. Yeah. That would be annoying. If it just looks so absurdly obvious that there's no insight in your label at all. And as soon as you're demonstrating an awareness or a subtlety or an insight, either to you or to them, now we're making progress. So the only time a label could ever potentially be counterproductive is like if you weren't actually listening and the label indicates that you're not listening. I'm teaching USC and I'm teaching labels, and one of the kids in the class, he just wants to take the skills and make his deals and just hustle them, and he's just looking for a hustle. So he writes up a paper about, he goes, there's some malls, I think it was by Palm Springs or someplace, some outlet malls, a lot of people go to buy suits. So he goes in there, and he immediately starts the bargaining that my book teaches, with no empathy. And he's like, throws a price to the guy, and the guy's like, no. And he throws another price to the guy, and the guy's like, no. And then he says,
welcome, anal boy. Hope you live
sounds like we can make a deal. Like, no, it doesn't. I just shut down everything that you just said. If anything, it sounds like we're never going to make a deal. But he tried to use
Pleasure to
his
meet you.
label for manipulation. Now, the guy didn't get mad on the other side. But it's like, clearly, this dude's not listening.
And at the core of everything, you have a bunch of almost like hacks, like techniques you can use, but at the core of it is empathy.
At the core is empathy, yeah.
That's the main thing. And be able to just sit there and listen.
And proceed. Yeah, and look for insights.
You know what? I like the silence. Where you're both sitting there chilling with a drink, looking up at the stars. there's a moment, the silence makes you kind of zoom out and realize you're in this together, as opposed to playing a game or some kind of like chess game of negotiation. You're in it together. I don't know. There's some intimacy to the silence, and like if I'll ask a question and just let the other person sit there in silence before they answer, or vice versa. They ask me a question, I sit there in silence. That's a big, feels like a big intimate thing.
Yes.
And the other two types,
until they've experienced that, are afraid.
Thanks, Victor.
And what I'm actually going to do is,
what's the green dot?
one of the reasons I'm really comfortable with silence, I think, because I've experienced its effectiveness, and also my son Brandon, like he's a king of dynamic silence.
Where are you from?
Like he coaches people. He says, "Go silent, count thousands. Don't stop till you run out of numbers."
Ukraine.
Good line. He's also good. Full good line.
He is. That he is.
Even better.
And so there's so much to it. But the other two types are natural wiring against it, right? Until they've experienced it. And you've got instinct, intuition is giving you data once you've experienced it. But your amygdala is kicking into gear. Again, sorry, I realize it's more complicated than that. Until you've experienced it. So, accommodating, hope-based. How do they signal fear? The silent fear. So when you go silent, they're scared to death you're furious. Because that's how they indicate. The assertive thinks to use the analyst when silent because you want them to talk to them. When in point of fact, you're thinking or, and I love your description, the feeling of intimacy. The accommodators love shared intimacy. Would love to experience it. And I can see that being very compelling, them be willing to cross that chasm and experience silence and see how it works for them.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, which is why it's intimate. Because you start thinking, what's the other person thinking? Are we actually going to do this? We're going to sit here for 10 seconds and count. I mean, there's tricks to it, I guess, like Brandon says, is to just count it out and realize through data that there's intimacy to it. I had a friend of mine, he lost his voice singing, so he couldn't, the doctor says he can't talk for a week, just to heal the voice, the vocal cords. But he hung out with other people, with friends, and didn't talk to them. He just hung out, and he said it was really intimate. They both didn't talk to each other. They just sat there and enjoyed time together. I don't know. It's a wake up call. It's a thing to try maybe with people in your life. Just hang out and don't say anything. Like as an experiment. Don't say anything the entire day. But spend
Worth trying. Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting. And I haven't tried it myself. It seems it's kind of like a silent retreat, but more active as part of like regular everyday life. Anyway. Is there other interesting techniques we can talk about here? So, for example, creating the illusion of control.
Yeah, it's principally, by asking what and how questions. Because people love to tell others what to do or how to do it. It does a lot. That was really the way when the book was first written. That we really thought about what and how questions. It's giving the other side the illusion of control. And there's a lot more to it than that we've discovered. I mean, it triggers deep thinking, it wears people down. Deep thinking can be exhausting.
And you want, so what's the role of exhaustion in negotiation? Is that ultimately one?
You got to be careful with that. Some people exhaust intentionally. One of my negotiation heroes, a guy now who's unfortunately suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's. John Domenico Pico is the UN hostage negotiators that got all the Western hostages out of Beirut in the 80s. And he wrote a book called Man Without a Gun. And I'm acquainted with John. At this point in time, I don't think he has any memory of who I am at all. But he writes in his book, one of the great secrets of negotiation is exhausting the other side. Political negotiations, that could be John was a great death puncher. It was in the middle of, in the 80s, leading up to about 1986-ish. Every negotiation involving warring parties in the Middle East that you can imagine. He was in Cyprus, he was in Afghanistan, Iraq and Iran. The Iranian government had tremendous trust in him as a Westerner, a representative of the UN. Got all the Westerners out of Beirut, and he was just ridiculously patient. And which I found exhausting, but often find exhausting.
So exhaustion can be a component of finding resolution and negotiation.
If it tamps down the negative emotions, often exhaustion will tamp down negative emotions. The real trick is really getting negative emotions out of the way, because you've done been a negative frame of mind.
So the goal is always positive emotions to talk about. That's what you're always chasing together.
I think so. Yeah.
And that's what that's right is about.
Yes.
Like whatever you're triggering, whatever the chemistry you're triggering in your brain, like we're doing good here.
Yeah. I think long-term success, absolutely.
How is the word fair used? And
the
F-bomb, as you call it. How is it used and abused in negotiation?
It's usually used. It's most frequently used as a weapon. It's abused as a point of manipulation. It's what people say when they feel backed into a corner and they can't come up with a legitimate reason as to why they're being backed into a corner. Like nobody uses the word the F-bomb. Nobody uses the word fair when they've got criteria. So consequently, when some dropping at you as an outside criteria, they're feeling very vulnerable. They can't explain it, but they feel defensive. And it's saying, hey, look, I've given you a fair offer, is a way for me to knock you off your game if you're not aware. So a lot of cutthroat negotiators are going to use it on you to knock you off your game. The NFL strike probably now, it's been a good 10 years ago. And maybe even longer than that. One of the sticking points was the owners were not opening their books to the players. Players wanted to see the numbers. And in order to not open their books, they just sent a rep to the press conference saying we've given the players a fair offer. Well, if it was fair, you'd open your books. Yeah. If you gave them a fair offer and it was justified by what was in your books, you'd open them to prove your point. So what ends up happening though, that the owners gave the players a fair offer starts to get picked up in the media. And then it starts getting repeated. And now there are different people on the players' side are going like, yeah, maybe they have given us a fair offer because people will be insecure about their own position. It's an enormously powerful word that can be used in abuse. And it almost always comes up in every negotiation. It's shocking the number of times it comes up with people who don't really understand how or why it's coming up.
So usually it's a signal of not a good place in negotiation.
Without question, I'm completely convinced that it is a means of getting what they want, then either accidentally or on purpose, either in their gut or they know want you to feel like I've treated you fairly. And if at any given point in time you think I'm not treating you fairly, I want you to stop me. And we're going to address it.
Big ridiculous question, but how do you close the deal? How do you take the negotiation to the time? Is it implementation ultimately?
You got to pivot to agreed upon implementation to really move out of the negotiation. And I may say, how do you want to proceed? And if you don't know, I might say, no warranted question. Is it a ridiculous idea if I share with you some ideas of how to proceed?
and then you agree on the actual steps, and that's the implementation. It's not just philosophical agreement, it's actual steps.
The big problem in all negotiations is a lack of discussion of the next steps.
That's deep. Who's the best negotiator you ever met?
Yeah, actually, probably my son, Brandon.
Yeah?
Yeah, he's ridiculously talented. I mean, he's ridiculously talented. And he's, and what was it? Coyle's book, The Culture, the Talent Code, says that, people just noticed and started getting good at it. There's no such thing as a child prodigy. Just got interested when they were a kid. I mean, Brandon started learning how to negotiate when he was 2 years old. And he's been in it and immersed in it, since he could make complete sentences, even before he could make complete sentences. He's ridiculously talented.
What's his future? What's he want to do?
He has been involved. He run and built my company, and now he's going to be an affiliated licensee, run his own operation. He's pretty much going to end up doing very much. It's going to open his entrepreneur
a better job than his dad.
Most likely.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do you see some of the techniques that you talk about as manipulative?
Manipulation is whether or not I'm trying to exploit you, hurt you. Am I trying to manipulate a bank robber into letting me save his life? Yeah. So manipulation is like, what am I trying to do?
Yeah. So, but you don't see the negative connotation. If you're trying to bring a better future, it's not manipulation.
It's not. If I'm trying to bring a better future, if I'm being genuine and honest, like I compliment you.
Yeah.
If my compliment is genuine, that's not manipulation. Like if I think you got a pair of shoes that are the dumbest looking things I've ever seen. And I go, wow, those are great shoes. No, that's manipulation.
So there's guys like Warren Buffett who are big on integrity and honesty. What's the role of lying in effective?
Lying is a bad idea. Lying is a bad idea for a variety of reasons. First of all, there's a really good chance the other side is a better liar than you are. They're going to spot it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Secondly, they could be luring you into a trap to see if you will lie. Thirdly, the chances are they're going to find out that you lied to them. Eventually, is really high. And then the penalties and the taxes are going to be way higher than what you had in the first place.
So long term, you want to have a reputation of somebody with integrity. The more you lie, the harder it is to maintain that reputation.
Yeah, exactly. And where's it going to get out?
Yeah. So what's the? Let me just return to that question. What's the difference between a good conversation and a good negotiation? Can we? Because I think just reading your work, listening to you, there's a sense I have that the thing we're doing now and just conversation on podcasts and so on is different than negotiation. It feels like the purpose is different. And yet having some of the same awareness of the value of empathy is extremely important. It feels like the goals are different. Or no?
Really close, fine line. I mean, I rolled in here not having any expectations, not looking for anything other than to have an interesting conversation. And to hear what was behind the questions that you were asking me and what interests you. And then also your description of silence, the power of silence, is something I'm going to take away as a learning point and help learn to teach others. But I ain't come in here, I suppose the negotiation is we're both aware of a problem we're trying to solve.
Right, there's no problem in the room.
Right.
Just to solve. Except maybe like the human condition. And
I think so.
How do you train to become better at negotiating? In business?
Small stakes practice for high stakes results. I mean, decide what kind of negotiating resonates with you.
I mean, what's that mean? Small stakes practice for high stakes. Small mental. Picking up girls at a bar? What are we talking about?
Yeah, well, it can be. For some people, that's high stakes. Holding mirrors. What are the basic tools? So you start labeling and mirroring people that you just having regular interaction with, just to gain a feel for whether or not you can read somebody's affect or how accurate your reading is, to get better at it. And so, label the lifter, or the grocery store clerk, or the person behind the airline counter at the airport.
So putting a label on their affect.
Or throwing something at them that, because negotiation is a perishable skill. Emotional intelligence is perishable. So seeing if you can indicate that you understand that. One of my favorite labels to throw out on somebody, which, maybe re-level. I might look at somebody who looks distressed and I'll go, tough day. So, several years ago, I'm at the counter at LAX. I'm waiting in line to get to the counter. And a lady behind the counter is clearly making a point to not meet my eyes so that I don't approach. And she looks, and so, like, you know when you're next in line and they're making sure that you don't meet eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, so they're having a bad day. So I walk up, and as soon as I approach the counter, I go, tough day. And she kind of snaps around. And she goes, no, how can I help you? And goes out of her way to help me. I'm practicing, but I also know it made her feel better. It relieves some of the stress. So now I'm going through TSA. Well, for people who are having a tough day,
it's a good place to find them.
It's a good place to find and practice. And I'm rolling through the line, and I realize I haven't tossed a label out on any one of these guys. And there's this guy watching the bags come out of the x-ray machine. And he's just kind of got an indifferent look on his face. And I go, tough day? And he kind of goes, I can see from his body language, like, no, just another day, huh? And he goes, yeah, just another day. He felt seen, but I missed, and I'm practicing. And I'm trying to stay sharp. So these are the
few words. Just a few words you're trying to, like,
nice. Very, very, very analytically simple. I'm not letting it go.
I love it. Does the same apply to just conversation in general? Just how to get better at conversation? I think a lot of people struggle. Insecurities, they have anxiety about conversation. As funny as this is to say, I have a lot of anxiety about conversation. Is that it basically do the same kind of practice some of the techniques.
Yeah, genuinely. Just trying to make sure you hurt somebody else.
Yeah. What's the best conversation you ever been in? Except this one, of course.
Wow.
I mean, not the best conversation, but what stands out to you as conversation that changed you as a person, maybe?
Well, there's probably been a lot of them along the way. I mean, but one that I remember on a regular basis is, well, actually there's two. But when I was in the Bureau, I'm at Quantico, I'm there for financial services, another guy from New York, buddy of mine named Lionel. And we're both trying to decide whether or not we want to try to get into profiling or negotiation. Because they're both about human dynamics, and both of us really like human dynamics. And we're sitting around talking about it, and we're talking about several things, and he labels it. And I knew he didn't know what he was doing. I think he had picked it up. And I'd been talking about my family, quite a few things. And he said to me, and I never said this directly, that we were close. But he said to me, it sounded like your family was really close. And I can remember in the moment, like this feeling, just like I felt great in the moment. I mean, what he said just drew together everything that I've been saying and nailed the essence of it. And I have a very clear recollection of how good that felt in the moment. So a couple years later, I'm on a suicide hotline. Now I got this line in the back of my head. Line, technique, reaction, read, whatever you want to call it. Guy calls in on the hotline, and I can tell the dude is rattled by his tone of voice. I mean, just amped up. And he goes, just trying to put a lid on the day. I need your help putting a lid on the day. I got to put And I go, you sound anxious. And he goes, yeah. And he came down a little bit, and he was a guy that he was telling me about, he was battling the disease of paranoia. And he's going to go on a car trip with his family the next day. And he knew that on the car trip, he was going to, twist himself into knots. And so the night before, he's twisting himself into knots. And he's laying out everything that he's done, paranoia, and how much his family's helping him. And he's going on a car trip with the family because they're going to take him to see a doctor. And so I hit him with the same thing that my buddy Lionel said. I said, sounds like your family's close. He goes, yeah, we are close. And he leveled out a little bit more. And then he started ticking off all the things that he was doing to try to be paranoid, and he sounded determined. And so I said, you sound determined. He goes, yeah, I am determined. I'll be fine tomorrow. Thanks. And that was all I said. So those two conversations, which are overlapping conversations, those two things really stick out.
Do those things, like, through all the different negotiations and conversations you've had, do they kind of echo throughout? Like, you basically, because when you empathize with other human beings, you start to realize we're all the same. And so you can start to pick little phrases here and there that you've heard from other little experiences. They were all about, like, we all want to be close with other human beings. We all want love. I think we're all deeply lonely inside. I'm looking for connection. We're just, if we're honest about it, have that same, what makes them tick. So do you kind of see yourself basically just saying the same things to connect with another human being?
Yeah, there aren't that many different things that we're looking for understanding on, or connection on, or satisfaction on. There just aren't that many of them, regardless. And so, yeah, you're looking for it to manifest itself in some form or another, and you're willing to take a guess on whether or not that's what you're seeing or hearing.
What advice would you give to me to be better at emotions? Share my empathy as well. Is there kind of, as a lifelong,
you take that approach? Is you related by it? And you definitely do see it as a lifelong journey, as opposed to, this is what if I can acquire this, then I can manipulate.
I fall in love with people I talk to. There's a kind of deep connection. It lingers with you, especially when I'm preparing. The more material there is in a person, the more you get to fall in love with them ahead of time. You get to really understand, not understand, but appreciate, but also become deeply curious. That's what I mean by fall in love. Like,
yeah,
you appreciate the things you know, but you start to see, like Alice in Wonderland, you start to see that there's all this cool stuff you can learn if you keep interacting with them. And then when you show up and you actually meet, you realize it's like more and more and more and more. It's like in physics. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And it's like, it's like really exciting. And then it can also be heartbreaking because you have to say goodbye. Goodbye. I hate goodbyes. I hate goodbyes.
Saves time on them, right?
Yeah. It reminds me that I'm going to die one day. Like, things end. Good things end. It sucks. But then it makes the moment more delicious. That you do get this back together.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to, I completely forgot, I wanted to ask you about this, the 7, 38, 55% rule. It's really interesting. Is there all truth to it? That 7% of the message is conveyed from the words used, 38% from the tone of voice, and 55% from body language. Is there really truth to that?
All right, so Albert Morabian, I think is the name of the UCLA professor that originally proposed the 738-55 ratio and discussed it in terms of the message, but how much they called it liking. Like, are you not that you the meaning is coming across, but your liking of the message, and so it's been extrapolated heavily by people like me to this meaning of the meaning in 738-55 from liking to the meaning. What I've seen regularly is people that communicate verbally, if they're speakers. Tony Robbins, 738-55 guy, he throws the ratio out there. Go, that's it exactly. That's exactly how the message comes across. This is how we got to balance it. This is how we got to do it. Those that communicate principally in writing, that the meaning of the words are much more important than them. So they're deeply uncomfortable with 7 being the words. Because the content, the words, the meaning of the words. When you're writing, it's so important that you hate to poo-poo it that way. So I first of all, 1,000% believe it's an accurate ratio. But the real critical issue is not what the ratio of those 3 things are. It's what's the message when they're out of line. Like, what's the message when the tone of voice is out of line with the words. Like, it don't matter what your ratio is. You got a problem if their tone does not match their words.
And that's hard to really put a measure on exactly. Even in writing, there's a tone. I mean, it's not just even in writing. It's not just the words. There's the words, but there's like a style underneath the whole thing.
Right.
And there's something like body language, a presentation of the whole thing. I mean, I'm a big fan of constrained mediums of communication, which writing is, or voice, like Clubhouse. There's a personality to a human being when you just hear their voice. It's not just, you could say it's the tone of voice, but you can like, what is it? The imagination fills in. Like when I'm listening to somebody, I'm imagining some amorphous being, right, doing things. When they get angry, I'm imagining anger. I don't know what exactly I'm doing.
And so you may think of a funny story because we were talking about your buddy Elon before, and I told you, about that I'd interacted with some of the senior executives. So I know that they love working with him, and I think he's an interesting guy, and they realize that he can be funny, and he jokes around. Yeah. So they're telling me, they're on this conference call, just words, and a guy on the other end of the line says something, that was wrong, but wasn't bad. And so they said they're on the phone, and Elon goes, "You're fired." And then everybody in the room with him can see that he's joking. But the person on the other side can't, and they're all going, wait, they can't see your look on your face right now. You gotta stop, because the guy on the other side is dying right now. He doesn't realize you're joking. So there were the words and the tone of voice, but it lacked the visual to go with it.
Nevertheless, it's probably funny.
I'm sure it was very funny.
Maybe not to him. Just as interesting to ask you, I don't know if you're following along the developments of large language models. There's been something called ChatGPT. There's just more and more sophisticated and effective and impressive chatbots. Essentially, they can talk, and they're becoming more and more human-like.
Right.
Do you think it's possible in the future that AI will be able to be better negotiators than humans? Do you think about that kind of stuff?
So definition of better or versus less flawed. Like the chatbots have been out there for a long time, and probably about 5 years ago now, a company approached us because they were doing a negotiation chatbot, and they said 2 things. First of all, I said, why are you talking about, quote, the Harvard methodology, and the rational approach to negotiation just doesn't work. Rational approach just does not work. Our chatbots are not getting it. What we're showing in around about 80% of the interactions, a higher success outcome with these chatbots. And they they showed me what they were doing, and it was still a lot deeply flawed emotional intelligence-wise. But the reason why that they were having higher success rates is the chatbots were never in a bad mood. And you could reach out for a chatbot in the middle of the night. So if you were talking to somebody that was never upset and was always available, then you're going to have a higher success rate. Negotiations go bad when people are in a negative frame of mind.
So the natural ability of a chatbot to be positive is just going to give you a higher success rate.
Yeah, and they're not going to give back. You know, you say with chatbot, you know, your price is too high. Chatbot is designed to come back with a smiley face.
Yeah.
You say to a person your price is too high, you know, how dare you? I'm trying to make a living. You know, they can go off the deep end.
Unfortunately or fortunately, I think the way chatbots are going now, they will come back negative because they're becoming more and more human-like. That's the whole point. To be able to pass the Turing test, you have to be negative. You have to be an asshole. You have to have boundaries. You have to be insecure. You have to have some uncertainty.
Well, there's a difference between having boundaries and being negative. Like I can, like if you throw a proposal to me, you know, before I say, look, I'm sorry, that just isn't working for me. I'm going to set up a real clear boundary without being negative. So, and a lot of people really struggle with setting boundaries without being negative, without name calling, without indignation, without getting upset.
But see, when you show that you're not getting upset, I'm not just seeing that. I'm seeing a flawed human that has underneath it a temper, underneath it the ability to get upset, but chooses not to get upset. And a chatbot has to demonstrate that. So it's not just going to be cold and you know, be this kind of corporate, blank, empty, sort of like vapid creature that just says, "Oh, thank you for saying that." No, it's basically you have to. The chatbot has to be able to be mean and choose not to be.
Interesting. I don't know.
Maybe
I'd be willing to see that play out and see how it plays out.
But I guess what I'm saying is to be a good negotiator, you have to have the capacity to be a bad person and choose not
really?
to. I think so.
I think you just got to have the capacity to set a boundary and stick to it.
Interesting. Because I think it's hard for me to trust a person who's not aware of what their own demons. Because if you say you don't have any demons, if you don't have any flaws, then I can't trust you.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's a lie, right? So somebody's lying.
Right.
Is that the lie?
Yeah. So you have to have a self-awareness about that. But you be able to control it, demonstrate the able to control it. I mean, this is humans. I just think humans, intelligent, effective humans, are able to do this well, and chatbots are not yet, and they're moving in that direction. So it makes me think about what is actually required for effective negotiation. That's what AI systems do. Is they make you ask yourself, what is it that makes humans special? Any discipline. What is it that makes humans special? Chess and Go games, which AI systems are able to beat humans at now. What is it that makes them effective at negotiation? What does it make them effective at something that's extremely difficult, which is navigating physical spaces? So doing things that we take for granted, like making yourself a cup of coffee, is exceptionally difficult process for robots.
Yeah.
Because of all the complexities involved in navigating physical reality. We have so much common sense reasoning built in. Just about how gravity works, about how objects move, what kind of objects there are in the world. It's really difficult to describe because it all seems so damn trivial, but it's not trivial. Because a lot of that we just learn as babies. We keep running into things and we learn about that. And so AI systems help us understand what is it that makes humans lose. What is the wisdom we have in our heads? And negotiation to me is super interesting. Negotiation is not, it's about business, it's about geopolitics. It's about running government. It's basically negotiating how do we, the different policies, different bills and programs and so on. How do we allocate money? How do we reallocate resources? All that kind of stuff. It seems like AI in the future could be better at that. But maybe not. Maybe you have to be a messy, weird, insecure, uncertain human and debate each other and yell at each other on Twitter. Maybe you have to have the red and the blue teams that yell at each other in the process of figuring out what is true. Maybe AI systems will not be able to do that. Or figure out the full mess of human civilization.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I mean, the two thoughts that I had along the way was, I mean, anytime you're talking about systems or scaling, you're talking, my belief is chatbot systems, things that don't require decision making, just following the instructions, at least 80% of what's going on. Now, the remaining percentage, whatever it is, does it require the human interaction and what's required? Like I am not pro conflict, and I also know that there's a case to be made in the creative world that some of the best thinking came out of conflict. Reading interviews of Bono on YouTube, you know, their admiration for some of the Beatles' best music came when they were fighting with each other. And the song One, Octoon, which is, I believe, from the album Octoon Baby. Those guys were fighting. I mean, they were on the verge of breaking up. And their appreciation that conflict could create something beautiful. And then when I was in the crisis negotiation unit, my last 7 years in the FBI, there was a guy that named Vince, brilliant dude, brilliant negotiator. And he and I used to argue all the time. And then when we had a change in the guy who was in charge, took me off to the side. He's like, I can't take you and Vince fighting all the time. And I said, well, I got news for you. I think we come up with much better stuff as a result of our battles. And he said, Vince said the same thing to me. And I like, so well, if we don't have a problem fighting, why do you have a problem? But there's something there that sometimes the most difficult insights, you rack your brains as to why someone is so dug in on something that you think is so wrong. Maybe there's something to it. I think there's something to it.
There's something about conflict, even drama, that might be a feature, not a buzzword of our society.
I understand.
Do you think there will always be war in the world?
Yes.
So there will always be a need for negotiators and negotiating. Well, as it turns out. Why do you think there will always be war? What's your intuition about human nature there?
Yeah, just because we're basically 75% negative, and then, for lack of a better term, I call it 2 lines of code. Like somewhere when we were little, somebody planted in 2 lines into our head. We don't know when it got in there. But somebody said something. A lot of people that had some really negative garbage dumped in their brain when they were little. And just based on the numbers, what kind of opportunity they were given afterwards, did they ever have an epiphany moment when they genuinely believe they can get themselves out of it? Like, what is it? One of Joe Dispenza's book is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get at that 2 lines of code that either mean or well-intentioned, but stupidly speaking, adults said to you at the wrong moment and planted in your brain? Like, how the chances of everybody on Earth getting that out of, even the majority of people on Earth getting it out of their heads is really small.
What advice would you give to a young person today about how to have a career they can be proud of, or a life? Maybe somebody in high school, college, trying to figure out their way in this world.
Yeah, it's probably a take on a cliche of do what you love, but if you figure out your ideals and pursue your ideals and stick to them when it costs you. Like a guy I admire very much, Michael Vogel, runs this Operation Christopher video in Atlanta. In one of his talks, he would say, core values are what you stick to that cost you money. It's not a value that really matters to you unless it's costly. And stick to your values. Now, when I was in the FBI, I worked really hard. One core mission of the FBI is protect and defend the American people. So I could, at all times, which I did, or I could follow the rules. You don't have time to do both.
But when did you know you found what you love? When did you fall in love with whatever this process is negotiating?
I think it was in a conversation on the suicide hotline that I was telling you about earlier with the guy who was paranoid. When I thought I can have that significant of an impact on another human being in this short of a...
So this question is a big question. How to live at all? How do you have that kind of deeply philosophical, deeply psychological, and also practical conversation with somebody and convince them they should stick around?
Well, it's more clearing the clutter in their head, and let them make up their own mind. That was what volunteering on Suicide Island was really about. Just let me see how quickly I can clear out the clutter in your head, if you're willing to have it cleared out. Like, did you call here because you're actually looking for out, or did you call here to fulfill some other? Are you willing to? Not everybody is.
So once you clear the clutter, is at least somewhat hopeful chance that you'll continue for another day?
Yeah. And like, if you step back, like, very few people that commit suicide physically are up against it that hard. Like, most of them, by and large, are pretty intact physically human beings. They're struggling with emotional stuff. The mercenary, like, and then became paralyzed. Like, he's an emotional um, leader. He's about helping people thrive and live great lives. Like, Marx was born, he was a spectacular athlete. And first he lost his sight in one eye, then he lost his sight in the other eye, and not a window in a tragic experience. Like, if there was ever a dude that was saying, like, living sucks, and if there's any doubt in my mind, something worse happens to me every few years. But Marx about being alive and inspiring other people. There's a chemical imbalance. What's the good? Again, I keep mentioning him. I'm kind of a Bono Christian. I think Bono's, he's like what? And I'm gonna butcher it, but my belief is. So, but that being said, I truly believe that my life was a gift, and there's a purpose here, and for my Creator decided that I woke up in the morning because He still had some cool, interesting things for me to do.
And you have great days. I really appreciate your work. I appreciate the person you are. Thank you for just everything you've done today, for just being empathic. Honestly, you're a great listener. You're a great conversationalist. It's just an honor to meet you and to talk to you. This was really awesome, Chris.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this conversation with Chris Voss. To support this podcast, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, let me leave you with some words from John F. Kennedy. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Thank you for listening, and hope to see you next time. How would a kangaroo attack a human?
Knock them down, and then they choke them.
The kangaroos do?
They choke each other, yeah.
They don't choke each other.
You don't believe me? You gotta watch a video. They choke each other out. I mean, probably the most annoying one was obviously the one where I had Gordon armbar. I was like, tap, bro. He wouldn't tap, so I let him out.
I didn't get surgery. I didn't do essentially any rehab. I just have no ACL in my left leg.
So what's it like having a...
The surgeon goes, you've got two options. Surgery, rehab only. Nicky goes, I'll do nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what could possibly go wrong if you're the world's best grappler, hates you, and you're gently provoking him behind the scenes every day? Well, I mean,
in Texas.
And you've stolen his brother, held him for ransom.
It is like a story of a shitty western.
The last part of a difficult wake up for me is I try to find a sad movie and at least cry about a pound out. That really gets me over the line.
What are the rules in the streets?
Do you think if you're on steroids you would have finished the show?
I mean, for sure.
Who knew that the cure to the Dagestani wrestling or the Aussies?
The following is a conversation with Craig Jones, Nicky Rod, and Lucy Ryan, who together with Ethan Crelinsten and others make up the B Team, a legendary jiu-jitsu team here in Austin, Texas. It was formed after the so-called Down and Hard Death Squads in general, and here for it. To see the best grapplers in on the mat and on Instagram. I like the people on both teams, and really happy to see the coaches. Let's Bring the podcast. Support it. Please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, there's Craig Jones, Nicky Rod, and Craig. Can you introduce everyone?
Nicky Rod here, brown belt, two-time ADC. Nicky Ryan here.
Who are you?
And I'm Craig Jones, also a two-time ADCC
Silver medalist. So the #1 loser. And maybe a little bit more. Your bio says widely known as the land of pizza and biceps.
Yes, that's pretty accurate.
Okay. You also do carry a gun on you a lot?
Yeah, I keep it loaded, you know,
Yeah.
keep it on me.
You have one today?
In the car.
That was a mistake. That was your first mistake.
Yeah, I think you're too close.
Very uncomfortable.
And you are Nicky Ryan. What else is there? What else do we know?
Gordon Ryan's brother.
Gordon Ryan's brother.
Wait for that one.
Alright, so then you're all together part of the leadership of the B team here. Let's just get out some introductory questions.
I'm proud just to not have to work a full-time buyer on the book.
Yeah.
Honestly. Oh, probably a jiu-jitsu tournament. I think maybe in Abu Dhabi where I won $1,000. Thought I was rich.
Yeah. Would you spend $1,000 on?
Blue would be octopi.
That's a good introduction to training. So what about you? When's the first time you made money on jiu-jitsu? Or what's actually stepping back? Like, what's the thing you're most proud of? Is there something kind of like?
I think I'm most proud of is for sure 2 ACC silver medals, which hurts because you're so close to getting that gold, but it takes time. I'm understanding that sport of jiu-jitsu takes quite a while to be at the tip top to be the absolute best. So just being consistent in my training and my craft, and get that number one spot one day.
What failure or loss is the most painful to you?
I don't know. I probably have a pretty short-term memory, so my losses, I just forget about them. Yeah, I mean, for sure, my loss at this past ADCC in the finals, that one's something big because I definitely thought I was gonna win. I mean, like, it takes a while to produce the skills or the reactions more so that you need to have to be that number one pound for pound guy. And pre ADCC, I was coming off an injury, so it took me a little bit to find the right mentality and physicality that I needed in order to get the wins that required gold. So yeah, it's just a process.
Interesting. You keep saying process, like it takes a while to build up. So you're not like thinking of a loss like ADCC as like a specific failures. You haven't gone long enough in a particular process to being a champ.
Well, I mean, for me, I'm closing in on 5 years of specifically jiu-jitsu training. I'm about 4.5 right now, and yeah, it's just you constantly have these ups and downs in training where like as long as you stay consistent, you'll have a gradual raise, but it's still you'll have these lows where I will be in a few years. In a few years from now.
Are you actually? Was that a joke?
Brown belt, yeah.
Brown belt. Like
No strikers.
Okay. Is that part of the process that you're working through?
Definitely part of the process. I mean, you think of black belt is just based on how much not. If you're talking competitive wise, like for when I started, I black belt. I was gifted wrestling experience, and know when it's right, but I'm not in a rush at all. I'm continuing. I just kind of take every day for what it is.
Do you take that seriously? What comes into play into?
Yeah, I mean, it's like just you do years of wrestling and obviously
Like, how do you measure knowledge?
how well you're able to show the moves and really have an understanding of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's an interesting rank. It's like it's something that takes many years to push, and feels like it represents particular journey. So for you guys, it's like different. So I take it seriously. It is a big step for you instead of just being top one. That was a joke. Taking it seriously. Brown belt, taking to the black belt.
I think by the time I get a black belt, I'll be pretty happy all the time.
What do you guys do? You like winning or hate losing more?
The pays the bill.
Oh, really?
Yeah. See, if I win, I'm excited about my life.
I hate losing, but I said to get to where you want. And winning is like, I mean, winning is probably you can think because I mean we're on a adamant about and you end it. I mean you're on that high. So I'm gonna say no.
It's a win.
Something for heroin. Okay. I guess that's what.
But like about Western culture, because it's just they're anger and frustration with themselves.
I think that's something. I think that's just to show everybody like they're acting like it and really maybe enough to so they lost the emotion like after their loss. But yeah, I mean, I think you just cry in the air and else.
What have you ever cried? Have you cried more than one?
Not yet. Not yet. I try to avoid those. Actually, I did wake up, at least cry. About a pound out. I was low energy.
Dude. There's other one to talk to.
I'm guessing for sure hazing winning. Something that's kind of healthy. It makes it so I really hate that feeling. Especially for definitely.
Behind you in the months and weeks later.
Yeah. My financial ability, everything kind of you to compete. Huge for the leading up to matches. That's definitely something.
You guys are like world class, me more this competitor. That was probably afraid I was not comparison. Like you even actually solid. That was the thing I hated the most in terms of coming there. Is like it takes time off you.
I think you gotta come to take that emotion. It's too easy to like think about all my girls and crouching like I want to win because they're there, but the hype show at all.
Yeah, especially like your mental.
I think it's okay. Like it's completely practical. I I put myself in competition. That way, when the time got in there,
So you were leading up to what was it?
like 4 weeks on into my competition. That way, you know.
What about you, Chris?
Competition line, federal accusation, block it out. I got training that program. I don't want training competitions.
And from that,
My place, no warm ups on the street.
That's the thing.
all right, so you do it.
It's easy to say. I look at him and it's like, I have a bit of talent.
Mistakes. I just
Think about it.
I'll just think about that. Just make a joke out of it and kind of.
We put the meaning into it, but some of the people is what
Well, all humans, what is on is you get hungry, while chasing money, whatever the hell. In the capitalist society, dictator, and others get on sports and for others, get on, and eventually all of us will die. The sun, all the other planets is very difficult. Another good.
Oh, you called me there.
Ground,
when you got it.
I try to go.
you legit about
Not to list, like if I win, I got an narcissism and started to sound losing. Happens with 12. Yeah, exactly.
excellent. I get it.
This one's the virus ripoff.
So the way you pronounce boroughs is pretty sexy. Okay.
Do you throw lines at people? And sometimes I was kind of near, I would put a line. Like,
The way
yeah, like it's close to, like can't read it.
You said I'm still on board.
Yeah.
Are you a hit for this analogy? T-shirt.
I think, I don't know if that's,
I think we're lost. That makes it anyway. The degree you tell the time you've had.
I can pick up in ACC and we said, right, maybe we had, there were like 4 locker rooms and they put me with all the me and all the things the weekend before. It was actually for children, and because I was in New York at the time, that was a bit. I was going to move to America because black is death. I see that Australia was part American. And I went in training, just a massive, powerful, like show up to actual 8 a.m. at the time. People in the, I had a ton of them, and I was coming here, training with local, but really, that gala, like that job, so like, you put guys, and then go back to work. Or what? I feel like that's what you can do as you would.
Yeah.
I thought it sounded before too. I remember watching Eddie Cummings stuff, which was like, you know what, that's probably a good move. That looks like the trans guys. But my philosophy is that's the path I sort of chose.
Alright, so how
we end up there. I like Burrito, which things go very weird. That time was lit. I got very well with it. I was like, I don't know what it was. But behind the band, the imaging train, but basically, a closed doors, she's always making noise, finding out like it. She's got a cold and receive that relationship with John. Because of psychosis, brain part, he never think about weapons. That first John speaker, yeah, I think like I'm not,
silly.
yeah, I thought it's
Without the
no, you get him mad. Sambo.
brother. Alright. Good at everyone.
So the way I started, I was training. Like initially, I talked to Wilhelmina, New York, and I was like trying to back in the wrestlers and training jiu-jitsu and I went my career. And most part I trained on top of 4 weeks of competition. I had over and so I was wanting to eat pretty success. You know, I was like some body like stuff. We got connected with Ryan. I started, the scene was about power and health. So you call Jersey. So it was about 100 and we got
all that. Anyway,
along that website, a couple of guys people in the Jersey area, so they free time every night. I just kind of was a team of the Boston. Yeah, I definitely learned this from like it's not without I get more verbal with my training. Showing I'm always about rabbit technique,
that was what he would.
So yeah, so it's back on living and it's not that's when it's done. Like you have different sequences, there's an abundance of opportunity sequences. definitely that's what gives him many. I mean, I think so. I think but it's just not.
People just saying, when I was like 18, prior to me, really just training, exercise. I went to class, did I was in school, it would take me over training, and at least do I actually during my school, like, yeah, okay, this is like they show me like
That's not right.
told every day, so I keep actions and jump every when you're you like have grades. And so you get help. I was just when I started Gary was big. I was really about much both never work job he did following his footsteps and he comes out. That's like exactly he was big living. If you wanted to actually live, you have to plan. I think Gary got other people to father definitely you have animosity and ending definitely but started to hard to all this actually just to rewatch trying to see yourself and miss the next time. Yeah, they does tram like that. Okay, you know like man, these there's not one for the wind wasn't anything but
we started off with having and we had more digital.
Well, I got your structure.
Didn't know.
I think that's all. What is that? Obviously, thank you for that.
I became the most famous. Thank you.